Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. We're just waiting for people to log on here, so I'm going to wait about 1 minute before we get started. Manuela from Nutrium let me know that today it is a holiday in Portugal, so for those of you who are calling in from there, thank you so much for joining me. We're going to go over a few housekeeping bits when we get a couple more people on the call, and then we will get started. So it is 2 o'clock now. I'll wait till around 1 or 2 minutes past 2, and then we will get started. So if you haven't done so already, grab a glass of water. If you're on holiday, maybe you've got something a little bit stronger than that, and we will get started in around 1 to 2 minutes. Again, for those of you who are just joining us, I just announced we're going to wait about 1 minute just to allow everyone to kind of click and get in onto the webinar, and then we will get started. So we're going to wait about 1 more minute. Welcome to those just joining the webinar. All right. I think we're good. My phone says 3 minutes past 2, so we're going to get started. Right on. So starting off with housekeeping, well, first of all, welcome to the Art of Attracting New Clients, a business building webinar for nutrition professionals. We are very excited to be here today to be offering this to you, as I feel this is a really important topic. I also feel quite flattered that Nutrium has reached out to me. I'm really excited to be sharing some of the tips that I use in my own business to bring in new clients. So really excited to have that discussion with you today. Just to go over some key housekeeping aspects, there are a couple of things that I want to let you know that you have access to on the webinar today, and that is the Q&A in the bottom. You might see it on the bottom of your screen or on the right-hand side, and then there's also a chat function as well. I just want to let you know, I'm encouraging you, please do put your questions in there, whether it's on the chat or whether it's in the Q&A. Maybe if it's just a comment, keep it in the chat box. If it's an actual question for myself or Nutrium software, please drop it in the Q&A. But just to let you know, just it is quite difficult as one person running one of these things to sort of answer the questions at the same time and give them my full attention. So I encourage you to ask them, but I will get that to them at the end of the webinar. And then if we don't have time to answer them on the end of the webinar today, I will make sure that you have my contact details as well as Nutrium's contact details so that you can get your questions answered. So welcome to the Art of Attracting New Clients. That is me there, but this is me here. So hi, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. The sun's just come out, which is fantastic. So that is me there. I did have a fringe in that photo. I do not anymore. I'm a registered dietitian. I also have a background in marketing. So I started off my career as a retail dietitian under the marketing department, and then moved for the in-store dietitian program that I was a part of sat under the marketing department. So we did a lot of stuff with them. And then I went on to work as a marketing manager for a startup baby food brand in London called Piccolo. And then I soon thereafter started Glowing Potential. So that's sort of a short history, and hopefully some of that experience that I have, I can share with you in really how to bring new clients into your business from both. I've worked on the dietitian side of things and the marketing side. So hopefully today you'll walk away with some practical tips and tricks. We've already talked about housekeeping, but just to remind you, you have the Q&A box, you've got the chat function, and also this webinar is being recorded, so just be aware of that. If I'm answering questions towards the end, that's going to come up on the recording. If you want to submit an anonymous question, we have that enabled today, so you can do that. You don't have to, although we'd love to know who you are, you don't need to hide behind your screen, but if you prefer to remain anonymous, there is that ability. I will ask a couple of questions via a poll on the webinar, so you'll see those pop up. Please do interact with those. I can't see you, unfortunately, like I would do if I was presenting to you, so I can't see the look on your faces or how engaged you are, so it's lovely when I get some feedback. So these are some of the companies that I've worked with or for, and this is through Glowing Potential. So as I mentioned, I do run a nutrition communications consultancy, nutrition being very, very near and dear to my heart as a registered dietitian. And this is just some of the wide variety of clients that we work with, from we've done some workshopping with Deliveroo to Weight Watchers to food brands. So I'm really proud of the portfolio we've built as a company, and I'm going to give you some tips today on how to bring in new clients, and that's B2B, so business to business, or B2C, being business to consumer. So that's most of you who are in private practice, getting one-on-ones through the door. As I mentioned, today is in partnership with Nutrium. I'm really excited to be offering this webinar with them today. I really believe that it's really important to me that I choose businesses that are aligned with the values that I have. And one of the things I really feel strongly about that I think Nutrium does very well is they always are looking for ways to innovate to make the marketing and business aspect for nutrition professionals a little bit easier. So just so you know, structure for today, I'm going to walk you through my top tips for attracting clients to your nutrition business. And then towards the end of the webinar, I'm going to show you some things you might not know you can do with the Nutrium software, but is really, really a heavy hitting bonus, especially if you're just starting out in freelance or in a small business, or if you've been even in business for a while. But really, if you're just starting out, there are some fantastic functionality pieces that Nutrium has that I want to tell you about today, but we'll get to that at the end of the webinar. And again, I will answer your questions at the end of the webinar as well. So I'm going to take my video off now because I find it quite distracting if I'm seeing myself moving in the top right-hand corner, but I will pop on and off that video throughout the webinar today. Today, we're going to be talking about basically how to bring clients through the door. And the one thing I always talk to people about when I'm working helping nutrition professionals market their businesses, regardless of if it's business to consumer or business to business, is that at the end of the day, you're working with people. Even if you're looking to attract a business, so if you do a lot of corporate wellness stuff, you're not attracting that big business, you're attracting the HR manager within that business or the PR person within that business. We are always dealing with people, and that's so important to remember. So all of these tactics are applicable whether you're trying to attract businesses or whether you're trying to attract those one-to-one clients. But before we do that, we need to figure out who your ideal clients are, because if you don't know who you're attracting, it's really difficult to attract them. So we're going to talk about the idea of an ideal client. And those of you who have heard from me before have heard me talk a little bit about that, probably a lot if you've been on any other webinars of mine, but it's a really important thing to understand. The second important piece is language. So we're going to talk about why language matters and how you can make yourself more aware of how to appeal to your ideal customers, or your potential customers rather. Third piece, talk about the courage to put yourself out there. I'm going to get to that towards the end of the webinar. And then talking about persistence and tenacity, which is really, really important in any business, not just nutrition. So let's talk about this idea, who is your ideal client? And in marketing, we hear two terms. We see the term target market and the term buyer persona coming up a lot when it comes to this idea around the ideal client. And basically the two differences, you have target market, which is a particular group of clients that you're trying to attract, or type of person, or a group of people with a particular challenge. And then you have a buyer persona, which sometimes is called particularly, your ideal client, A, B, or C. And you see companies use this as, they really put this out there as a real person, so a real buyer of your items. And what I mean by that, so as an example, one of the companies I used to work for it was the supermarket chain that I used to work for. I think her name was either Julie or Brenda. I cannot remember for the life of me who it is now, but the marketing department had, this is Julie. She's between the age of 30 to 35. She has 2 children. She works. She's got a busy. So the marketing department, when they created content for that particular supermarket, they were thinking about, okay, what would Julie do? What would she buy? What is Julie thinking about? And this Julie, this buyer persona, really became a real person that the marketing department could talk about and develop content for. So target market and buyer persona, a little bit different, but I encourage you within your own businesses to create either 1, 2, or 3 buyer personas so that you can really create content that resonates with that ideal buyer. But going back a slide here, what is an ideal client? What does that mean? Well, an ideal client is really 4 things. 1, they're within your scope to help. So as dietitians and nutritionists, we know we have a scope of practice, we have a certain skill set, and we tend to feel comfortable with that certain skill set. So that idea of scope of practice, so who's within your scope to help? Second piece is an ideal client is someone who can afford your services. Now, this is something we don't tend to talk about in public health. So things like if you're working within a hospital setting. But when we move into business, guys, we have to talk about money. It cannot be a taboo subject. You want to be attracting people to your business who can afford to work with you. And that doesn't mean that every service you're offering is a premium service. It doesn't have to be, but you need to think about, is the ideal client that you're attracting, can they afford your services? And if not, do you need to change your pricing model or your structure, or do you need to look at targeting another client base? So 2, can the client afford your services? Number 3, does the client want to work with you? Obviously, that's important. Is there a values match? Do they like the way that you work? And that will be something that will come across in your tone of voice, either on social media or on your website or in the clinic that you run, or any events that you put on. So they're going to decide that. That's really not up to you. That's up to the client. But you obviously choose how you come across to your clients. And then the 4th piece, an ideal client is someone you want to work with, which oftentimes is difficult when we first start working in private practice or freelance. We feel like we have to take anyone and everyone that comes to the door, because maybe at the beginning there aren't that many. And that's okay. We've all been there. But it is worth setting those goals as to who you want to work with, so that you're building a practice that you're really passionate about, because that will shine through. And ultimately, that is what keeps the momentum of your business going. Okay, so who you want to work with is also an ideal client as well. You don't want to have to get to the point where you're taking anyone who comes through the door. Okay. So we talked about target market and buyer persona. So who is your ideal client? And how we start to work this out, and again, this is really important, guys, because we need to know who these people are before we can start attracting them. Okay, sounds silly, really important. So 1, who are they? Where are they? What are their challenges and keywords that they use? So those are 4 things that I'm going to talk to you about today as to finding out who your ideal client is and how you can start to have a clear idea of that buyer persona. So maybe Sally or Julie or Sarah or Bob or Bill, whoever, okay? But we need to get an idea as to who, where, what these people are, okay? So when we talk about who they are, we can talk about things like demographics. So we talk about average age, we talk about sex, we talk about whatever. A lot of these things come in that sort of initial, if you think about when you first fill out an initial consultation form, if you're doing any private practice work, a lot of the, maybe occupation, if you look at that. So all of those things, the basics of what your average person does, okay? Their priorities. So do they have children? Do they not have children? Are they caregivers? Are they not caregivers? All of this stuff is going to change depending on your practice. But it's worth taking some time to think of, okay, on average, who is this person? And you might have a couple of buyer personas that you want to make, but it is worth thinking about these things. So priorities as well as key characteristics of that particular client. Do they live in a rural area? Are they in the city? Do they want online? Are they less tech savvy? All of these things are really important when we start to think about, okay, I want to bring more clients into my practice, but first I need to figure out who they are. So this is a key part of that. The second piece, which I mentioned, was where are they? So once you figure out who they are, we want to find out where they are. And no surprise here, you need to know where they are so that you can be in the right places to begin to engage with your ideal client. So oftentimes we think about where they are as an online piece. We think of forums, we think of social media, we think of chat apps like WhatsApp, although that's maybe not online. We can put that in a digital category, but do not discount offline. Those face-to-face encounters are so important, and it's really, really great to make those first impressions offline, so in person, even if all of your services are online, because you begin to build that trust, which is very, very important. So offline would be things like networking pieces. Maybe you're doing demos in a supermarket, or you're talking about your service with another practitioner. So maybe you've partnered up with a physiotherapist, whatever that looks like to you. But offline is a really important place to think about where your ideal clients are as well. And then brainstorming us some ideas after you know where they are. How can you get in front? How can you engage in those particular areas where they are? And the third piece is, what are their challenges? And a big part of sales and marketing is listening, okay? So you want to listen. I've also heard it called copy stalking. So meaning the writing or the dialogue that's happening back and forth, and looking for the words and the phrases they're using to describe their challenges. So what are their challenges? You can find this out by looking on forums, listening to people at networking events, and really, if you start to see patterns. And when you start to see a pattern, that's when you can start to provide services for those challenges you see come up time and time again. The last piece is, what words are they describing their challenges? What words are they using to describe their challenges? And this is about language, which is the second major piece I'm going to talk to you about today. But really important to use the same language that your ideal clients are using. That builds a better relationship, it builds trust, but it also makes it easier for them to understand what you are saying, okay? So really listening to your ideal clients' phrasing and tone of voice when they're talking about their challenges. So that brings me to the second large point today. So we've talked about your ideal client. Now we need to talk about why language matters. So we found out who your ideal client is, which is the first step to bringing clients through the door. It's the idea, if you're selling to everybody, you're selling to no one. So you need a particular group of people to market your services towards. And the second major piece is thinking about the language that you're using. And language does matter. You really want to watch the sciencey professional jargon that we can get into as nutrition professionals, okay? And these are some really rough examples here, but I really want you to take away the fact that when you listen to your ideal clients, they will guide you as to the language you need to be using. So as an example, if you're listening to people's problems about, maybe you run an IBS clinic, so you're dealing with a lot of gut health patients, and the way that you're talking about, GI and blah, 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 and you notice that when you start to look at all the ways that your ideal clients are describing their problems, that there is no mention of GI or gastrointestinal, yet on your website, it's got GI, gastrointestinal all over it, and there's not one mention of the word gut. Okay, and I think a lot of people use this language because they feel as though maybe that's what sets them apart from other professionals. Maybe that the sciencey jargon makes you look more professional. But the idea is, guys, that it really just confuses people. So just be aware of the language that you're using. And again, this is a really rough, really rough guide here. And there are so many more examples. And depending on your ideal client, these things are going to change, right? But it is important to think of the language that you're using and be careful that we don't move towards acronyms either, okay? So short forms for things, really make sure you're speaking the language of your clients. And this is particularly particularly important for static information. And what I mean by static are things that you're not there to explain it, okay? So on your website, particularly is where I see a lot of sort of sciencey professional jargon, and it's different in conversation, and it's different as well on social media, because you're there to explain if people have a question about a particular term that you've used. But if you're not live and present, if that information is just up there living on its own, be really careful with the language that you're using. And the other reason why language is really important is because search engines use these words. So what people are typing in Google or Yahoo or DuckDuckGo or whatever search engine they're using, if your website uses the terms that they are using, then you're more likely to be found. And this in turn moves you higher up the search engine list. Okay, and that's a really basic way of explaining it, but basically it's not just the understanding of your ideal client that's the benefit here. It's also, from a digital marketing perspective, a way that's going to bring you to the top of search engines. All right, so the more content you produce using the words that your clients or your ideal clients are searching for, the better off it's going to be for visibility for your practice. The other thing I see a lot on clients that is not going to help you attract new clients is when your website is all about you. And this doesn't make you narcissistic. I think it's just the common thing to sit down and go, okay, I specialize in this, I do this, I can help this, and this is where my experience is. And always think about, when you're writing things for these customers to be, that they are reading it for them, not for you. So just be mindful about how you speak about the things that you do. So as an example, and again, on an about page on your website, this is different than in a blog post. If someone clicks on an about page, then they want to know about you. But if they're reading about services, this isn't about you anymore. This is very much about your ideal client or your potential customer. So instead of saying things like, I do this, you can start off something like, are you having the following symptoms? Or are you looking for a dietitian or nutritionist who specializes in this? Are you looking at a healthcare professional that prioritizes blah, 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 blah? Okay? It's not about you. Try and phrase it for the reader. Okay? So the more you can make it about them, the better off you are. All right, so look at your website, make sure, I call it the eye test. Make sure that when you go through it, that you don't see, if your whole sort of home page and services page is all I, have a look and see if you can reword it to be a bit more about your potential client. And so how do you learn to best phrase your resources or your websites or your articles? Where do you get that language from? You listen. Okay, so you read clinical notes, you look at forums, so that copy stalking piece that we talked about. You go back, maybe you keep a phrase a phrase notebook or a Word doc that you constantly add stuff to when you see different phrases and things being used. You read your testimonials, okay? And make sure you get testimonials, guys, because one of the things about bringing new clients in is that social proof. So the idea that it's not you saying, hey, I'm great, it's somebody else saying, hey, she or he is great. Social media is a great spot to go and look about how people are talking about their problems as well. All right. So the beauty of this and the great news is that as nutrition and healthcare professionals, most of us are really great at listening. Okay. We got into healthcare, we got into nutrition in the first place because we want to help people. And a big part of helping people is listening. Okay. So listen to what your ideal clients are saying. So confidence is the fourth part that I wanted to talk to you about today. So confidence in putting yourself out there. People need to know you exist, right? That's a key part into attracting more clients to your nutrition business. So before I move on, I want to ask you, I'm going to launch this poll here. I want to know, just click on whatever you agree with here. Are you afraid of coming across as too pushy when promoting your nutrition services? So if you just want to vote there for me, are you afraid of coming across as too pushy when promoting your nutrition businesses? Freelance services, whatever that is. I had to laugh because when I wrote this poll, I said, are you afraid of coming across as too pushy when promoting your services? And when I read it back, it sounded kind of rude, so I put in nutrition services. So are you afraid? I'm going to run it for about 10 more seconds here. If you could vote for me, just click a yes, no, or I'm not sure. Are you afraid of coming across as too pushy when promoting your services? Okay. Right. I'm going to share the results with you here. So 78% of you said, yes, you are afraid of coming across as too pushy, and 22% you're not too sure how you feel about it. And I just wanted to do that as a little bit of an exercise because that is something that I see a lot of. Is I hear a lot of people asking me, Emily, how do I do this without being a pushy, slimy salesperson? I don't want to force anyone into anything that they don't want to buy because I'm not really sure if they are interested. And guys, what I have to tell you is that you might feel like you're being pushy, but a lot of the times no one notices you're there, especially if you're in the first year in business. And I know that sounds brash, and to some of you that might be heartbreaking, but that is the reality. If you don't feel uncomfortable, you're probably not doing enough. And I know that sounds awkward, but 9 times out of 10, it is so very, very true. I think as healthcare professionals, as nutrition professionals, we feel very awkward when we talk about our services because most of us are trained in an environment where we're not selling things for money. But what I want to tell you is that you have sales skills because you're constantly trying to sell people as nutrition professionals on lifestyle changes. And that is the hardest thing to sell, okay? So you might feel like you're being pushy, but your services are helping people. And I'm going to tell you some key things to think about to move away from feeling like you're being pushy, okay? So you might feel like you're being pushy, but sometimes, most of the time, no one notices that you're there, all right? And it's this idea that when we first start out in business, we have this place of business and we think that we're doing a lot, but maybe we've talked to a couple people about we're opening up, but we forget to do the simple things. So the first place is really, make the announcement that you are open for business, okay? If, I guess an example, if you had a house and you were doing nutrition consultations inside it and you weren't talking about what you were doing and you didn't stick a big sign outside so everybody who walked past knew that you were opening nutrition services, no one would have any idea, and therefore, even if you provided the best services in the world, you'd have no one to provide those services to because no one would know you exist, okay? So make that big shout out, open for business, nutrition consultations here, okay? Make that mindset shift. That's really important. But the thing is, even 5 10 years ago, I mean, 10 years ago is a while for some of you who are on the webinar today, but even 5 years ago, people weren't in as many places as they are now. There are constantly new networking things popping up. People attend different types of clinics, whether it's holistic clinics, whether it's their GP. They might be in certain hospital areas where, as a dietitian or nutritionist, you want to get referrals because you specialize in a particular area. So you have ideal clients that are in particular clinics you probably want to get a hold of. There's people on forums online, whether that's in social media, so things like Facebook groups, things like Mumsnet, things like Quora. So people are everywhere. So it's not good enough just to put up a website and announce that you are offering nutrition services. That is not going to work. You effectively need to put up you're open for business in all of these different places to be able to bring those clients in. And that can be overwhelming. I think one of the main things that people fear is once they realize that they have to do this, okay, Emily, this is great, but how do I be in all of these places at once? And it's that idea where how do you eat an elephant? Well, you eat it bite by bite, right? So you don't jump onto all of these things at once. You pick a couple of areas. You might pick, okay, I'm going to promote my services on this Facebook group. I'm going to go to this networking event once a month, and I'm going to go to a new GP practice or a new doctor's surgery once a month as well, and just see if I can have a conversation and give some information to the secretarial staff there. Whatever that is, but it's not enough just to have a website anymore saying that you're having those services, and it's not enough to just rely on word of mouth either. You need to be creating good content. You need to be talking to people about the services that you offer in a multiple of different areas. Okay, so these are, you need to basically put up that open for business sign in all of these different areas. And that is hard on confidence when we're first starting out, because we might be doing a lot of this outreach. So let's call it outreach when we go out to these different areas and say that we're open for business, and we're not getting a lot of clients through the door. And that's a bit of a catch-22, guys, because the confidence comes from getting more people through the door, which just takes more perseverance with putting yourself out there. And so when you are feeling insecure and when you're feeling like, okay, how do I get over this barrier of maybe feeling like I'm being pushy, which I guarantee you, you're probably not pushy at all. Focus on helping people. So focus on why you got into nutrition in the first place and why your business really can help people. So focus on the helping. That can really, really help. Focus on the message you want people to take away. It's not just about promoting your services online or at these networking pieces. It's about really making connections with people, okay? So focus on connecting with people and the message that you want people to take away about what you stand for and what your business stands for. Really listen to what people are telling you. We've talked about that already. And then focus on delivering relevant content and show up to conversations online or at these networking events. Really participate. And if someone asks you, hey, do you know what do you think about this? I'm doing this in my business. Fully listen to people and engage in those conversations, okay? So a part of the confidence, like I said before, is about an outreach game plan. It's about putting your sign up for business in all of these different areas, but not all at once. So a key way to attract more clients is pick 1 to 3 areas and focus on weekly or monthly actionables, okay? And one of the things, whether you're just starting out or you're fully fledged, you're in business, is make time for outreach even if you are busy, okay? Because what happens is if you don't do that, you hit a lull, so you hit a slow time in business, and you realize, oh my goodness, I haven't done any outreach for a while, and now I have to go back to the drawing board. It's much easier to keep people in the pipeline as opposed to waiting for those slow periods and then having to bust your butt trying to get all these clients through the door again. So do yourself a favor, set aside that time and really make outreach a priority. And my last point here is confidence grows the more people you get through the door and the more times you do something that at first you found uncomfortable. So if you are uncomfortable at public speaking at a networking event, the more times you do things like that, the easier that becomes. And that in turn grows your confidence. So a bit of a catch-22, you need to push yourself. You need to feel a little bit uncomfortable. If you aren't feeling uncomfortable, I suggest you get uncomfortable, because to grow your business is not a comfortable thing. Okay. So pick 1 to 3 areas and make those monthly action items and really follow through with them. The last piece here is persistence and tenacity. And I just want to ask really quick, for you, how long have you been in business as a nutrition freelancer or as a nutrition business owner? Have you not started yet? Are you less than a year? Are you 1 to 2 years, 2 to 5 years, or 5 years or more? So just drop in an answer there for me. Okay, perfect. Oh, fantastic. Seeing a couple 5 years plus. That's awesome. Great. So I'm going to end the poll now. And I'm going to share with you the results. So some of you hadn't started yet. Some of you were 1 to 2 years, 2 to 5 years, 5+ years. So that's really nice. We have a nice spread here. With persistence, I just want to make sure actually that I took that down. Perfect. Okay. So those of you who are 5 years plus, even 2 years plus, know that persistence has allowed you to continue in business. Those of you who are a little earlier on, you might still, you might not have experienced having to continue to keep going when things are slow, or making those tough decisions as to if you are going to maybe change the services that you're offering, or if you're going to go back to the drawing board as to what type of business or freelance type of business that you want to offer. But tenacity is so important when it comes to attracting more clients, because really, sales is all about, and marketing is all about, following up with people. And that takes a lot of confidence, and that takes a lot of determination to keep going. And in those early months, so sort of before that 2-year mark in business, it really is a little bit, you feel like you're fumbling around in the dark. You don't know if you're talking to the right people, but you just have to keep putting your services out there and talking to people. And so persistence and tenacity, really, when it comes to attracting new clients into your business, it's all about following up. It's about when you send out a flyer or emails, or you call people, making those reminders in your diary, in your agendas, to call in a month, to send a follow-up email in a month's time, and just being really persistent and resistant with that. Just because you don't get an answer from somebody right away doesn't mean that the answer's no. And just because you get a no from, let's say, a clinic saying, no, not at this time, we're not interested in offering your clinic once a month here, or your sessions once a month here, that doesn't mean no forever. So following up and being persistent really pays off with attracting clients. Networking as well allows you to be in the right places. So again, going back to knowing who your ideal client is and where they are, that's really going to help you when it comes to putting yourself in the right places to bring in those ideal clients. And there's that saying where the harder I work, the luckier I get. And some of it, you look at a lot of business owners and you think, wow, they're so lucky. Look at how many clients they've got. I mean, their business has grown really, really fast. And a lot of that is just those people have worked really hard to get themselves in front of the right people. Okay, so you need to do the same, and that's going to bring clients through your door. And don't just try and talk to ideal clients or potential customers. Try and talk to people within your industry as well. Creating that support network is really important. And as well, as your friends in the industry start to get busy, or they niche down into different areas, they can become a great referral source for you as well. Okay, so there's a lot of partnerships that go on as people grow their businesses. So don't discount talking to people in the industry and collaborating with them as well. So we've gone through quite a few things today. We've gone through figuring out who your ideal clients are, really working on the idea of a client persona. We've talked about the importance of language, so making it not all about you, thinking about how your ideal customer phrases their challenges, and also bringing to the forefront that actually that allows you to show up higher in search engines if you're using the language that people are using when they are searching for things online. Third piece, the courage to put yourself out there, right? So we talked a little bit about how thinking when you're putting yourself out there and it's uncomfortable, thinking about how is my business helping people? And this is why I got into nutrition in the first place. And I really want to make a difference. And this is what my business does. And always coming back to that if you're feeling a little wobbly on the confidence side. And then the last piece is persistence and tenacity. So get out there, get in front of the right people and follow up. Do not send one email or give out one flyer and expect that, everybody's going to come running. You have to be persistent. And those of you who have been in business long enough know that this is really important. All right, great. So first things first, really hope that you enjoyed that. I'm going to get to questions at the end of the Nutrium demo here. And I encourage you, you can jump off the call if you're not interested at all, but I really think you should hang in because there are a couple of things that Nutrium does with their software that I think you're really going to like with regards to your business side of things. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to show you is and I'm going to bring you through the web page. I have that loaded up in just a sec. But in terms of the software, and we've got Manuela who's on the call today. If you have any questions for the software, you can drop them in the chat and I'll make sure that those get onto her. But I'm going to bring you through a couple of things that I really like about the software that is related to marketing and bringing in sort of those clients, which is what this webinar is all about today. So this is roughly what the software looks like behind the scenes. Okay, I'm not going to get into this in too much detail. You can see it's really intuitive. It's well laid out. You have Maggie Foster and Bob Foster here. Not relatives of mine, but they could be. Okay, and this is the home page. What I wanted to bring up here was that there's a couple of pieces that I encourage you to have a look at. This is the follow-up tab of Nutrium, and it allows you, they've just rolled this out where you can have a really good idea of how compliant your clients are being when you're working with them. And this is all done on a digital platform. So you can see this on your desktop and your client has the ability through a mobile app to track your goals that you have set together, food diary based as well as water intake. So you can be as detailed as you want to be. So the whole digital aspect of Nutrium was really important for me when I decided to sort of partner up with a nutrition software to run sort of these business webinars. But for me, the top three pieces that I really loved about Nutrium was one, they help you with your social media, which I think is really great when you're first starting out as a nutrition professional. So you can see here they have some fantastic stuff for Instagram stories, for Facebook, or for just your regular Instagram posts. So for those of us who maybe are taking on a bit of a side hustle, you're starting up freelance or private practice on the side, you just want to maybe you just want to make a bit of extra money to save up for a trip or whatever it is. I really think that this is a great tool to use, and they really help you with marketing your own practice sort of within the Nutrium setting. So you can see here they've got some really great resources for you in regards to social media. But the second piece that I absolutely love, and I'm going to share it here with you now, the second piece that I really was thrilled with when Manuela told me about it was the fact that actually they set up a website. So within Nutrium, when you use their software, you can set up your own website, which is so great because like I said, if you're starting off, this is a bit of a side hustle for you, or if you're getting a website maybe developed and that's not, or you're saving up to have one specifically developed for you, but you're not at that stage yet, then this is definitely something that you can use in the interim or really as an additional add-on. So you can see basic stuff here, what it looks like. They've got a contact button there as well. I think Manuela was telling me that they're looking at building in sort of appointments, building in allowing to set your availability and people to book in with you. For the time being, it's that contact form that pops up. You've got your social media links. So just like if you were to have your own website, you've got your social media links up there. So these actually link to my Twitter and my Instagram feed. If I scroll down, you've got your regular stuff sort of about what you do. And then you've got workplaces, which in a chat with Manuela, who looks after the marketing of the software, and she's really great. I encourage you to reach out with her to her with any questions. They said one of the parts that they really liked about this was that they were able to actually, when you set up your workplaces with your address, it actually helps your search engine search. So if people are looking for a nutrition provider within a certain area, then you're liable to appear higher on a search engine list for a certain area because you've got another address, another website hosting where your clinic is. So that's fantastic. And then the third piece that I really like about the website is they've got the ability to, if you create, and I'm going to jump around here for a sec, if you create a recipe, so I've created here the world's most delicious omelet. If I go in and I create that, I can then add that to my website. So just like you would for those of you who have a regular website and want a blog post, you can add it in as sort of a blog post / recipe. But other than the website, one of the main pieces that I really like about what Nutrium has done in relationship to helping you build your business is that they have helped you, and I'm going to bring this back up here in the PowerPoint, let's move here. They allow you to take those recipes that you have made, save them as a PDF, and therefore you can then use them as lead magnets. So for those of you who maybe aren't so familiar with the term lead magnet, basically what that means is that it's something that you give to a potential customer in return for some piece of information that you can then follow up on. So best example is, as an example, you download this recipe and you give us your email address and you get added to the mailing list. And so it's an incentive for people to sign up for your newsletter, or maybe to sign up for a free online course that you have, whatever that looks like for you. But I know that a lot of you are probably really short on time. And so if you've got these recipes already built in to the Nutrium software, it's something that you can really easily just use as a lead magnet with clients, which is absolutely fantastic. The last piece I wanted to mention about the software is really the fact that I think a lot of people now are expecting us as nutrition professionals who are in private practice to have some sort of digital part. And particularly when I say digital part, I mean not just something they can log on to on their computer, but something that they can have on their phone. And I know that Nutrium has the has the mobile app. Sorry, that's what the phrase I was looking for. They've got the mobile app that allows you to do basically all the same things you would do on that desktop version. So you've got physical activity tracking that syncs with a variety of trackers. You have messaging, which is really important. And I think as dietitians and nutritionists, we go every time we see a software saying, hey, we offer 24/7 access to your clients. But this is something that Nutrium manages really well. So you don't have to have 24/7 access with your clients, but it is there. And I think it's something that a lot of clients are looking for nowadays. So you have that messages piece. You have obviously the food diary piece as well. So Nutrium is really great at rolling out sort of customized meal plans and then being able to reuse those. So for those of you who are being sort of hit over the head again and again with clients wanting meal plans, there is this as an option as well. So I think for me, really, if you're looking for a software that keeps all of your data secure, so it's GDPR compliant, everything is in the same place, it offers an app for your clients, and you can, like I said, back on, and I want to show you this again, actually. I'm going to bring up, before I finish, I want to bring up the follow-up page. So if you're looking to track a bunch of clients, which hopefully, you're after this webinar, your business will grow and you will get a lot of clients. But you see here that you can really quickly look at sort of this dashboard follow-up page and see how at a really high level how your clients are doing. So you've got the complying, you've got struggling. And again, you can use this as intensively or not as you want, but it really does give you that high level overview. It's really quick and easy to see if your clients are sort of following your advice, or they're struggling with something, or they need help. So the long and short here is that, and really do let us know if you have any questions. So again, I can pass that on to Manuela if you have any questions, but I really do think that if you're looking for a software that, especially if you're just starting out in nutrition, but also if you're looking for some extra sort of digital aspects for your practice, I think it's a really great platform to explore. So I do encourage you to do that. And if you have any questions, again, ask them on here, or you can head to the Nutrium website as well. So I'm going to have a look now. I can see that I've had a couple people, it's funny, I have a couple of you ask questions in the chat or say I don't know. A couple of people saying hello. So if you want to drop your questions in the chat box or in the Q&A, you're welcome to do that. I don't have any questions at the moment, but please, we've got a couple more minutes. If you want to drop them in, I will stay on the webinar. If not, or if you are keen on asking the questions privately, please, you can head to emilycfoster.com, or you can catch me on any of the social media feeds. You can private message me if you'd rather do that as well. So you can find me on Twitter or Instagram. And yeah, other than that, I hope you enjoyed today. I hope you got some... I hope you feel as though you can walk away from this and implement some of those strategies to attract more clients. And I really, I wish you all the best in your businesses. Oh, we have someone asking here. How do we get around the problem of reaching out to offering to do some work, which then ends up me doing it as a volunteer job? Yes. So I'm just going to repeat this question here. I'm going to rephrase it because I think I butchered it a bit when I read it. So basically, yeah, how do you get around doing work for free when you're first starting out? Great question. Right. One of the things I always say to people is that just because you are not paid doesn't mean that it isn't unpaid work. So, or doesn't mean that it's not paid work. So what I mean by that is that you need to decide what is worth it to you to do things for no money. And when you do things for no money, what do you need instead? Okay. So what I mean by that is, if somebody asks you to do work for free, money free, what do you need to get back in return? And this is going to be completely different for all of you. I don't know what stage you're at. I don't know what if it is a client that you're working with, if it's another business that you're working with. But what I would say is that oftentimes we think of things that if we don't get paid, that it's not worth our while. And then equally, I see people on the other side of the spectrum that do a lot of things unpaid and then wonder why their business isn't growing. When you do anything, paid or unpaid, there should be some clear end goals for you. So the example that I like to give is that if someone asks you, let's say, and I got this request not too long ago, I want to do something for, I think it was Mental Health Week. And they had reached out to me, and I don't work one-on-one with clients anymore in that regard. So I don't, in terms of one-on-one consulting within sort of my own private practice. So for me, that wasn't the right thing for my business to do. And because I don't work one-on-one with clients, I was easy to say, hey, you know what? I don't do this anymore. I want to refer you on to somebody else. But if I did, what I would have said to this company is that, hey, you know what? I know that you say you're doing this as a volunteer thing, but if you want me to do this without paying me, I need maybe these three things. I need, one, you to send out an email to everybody within this certain group at your company that directs them to my website and talks about the services that I offer. 2, I want you to, whatever, maybe it's a food company you're giving a talk at, as an example. And maybe you would say, I want some free samples of food. And then maybe the third thing would be, and anyone who does attend this session, anyone who signs up, I want you to put in the sign up box at the bottom that anybody who signs up for this and gives their email address comes on to my mailing list. So to make, sorry, that wasn't a very summarized answer, but what I would say is that before you do anything like that, so any of those sort of, client talks or company seminars or whatever they are, you need to get something back. And it's the same thing for shows. So if you're looking to speak at a show, or if you get asked to speak at a show and they say, or a trade show or what have you, and they say, we'd really like you to speak, but we have no budget, that's a great opportunity for you to go back and say, hey, look, I'd love to speak for your show, if you actually would. And, but I want to get a blog post up on your website, and I want you to promote me in these ways, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so strike up those deals, not just with money. And you're going to have to do that when you're first starting out as well. So you really need to have your end goals in mind and think about what you want to ask from people in return for your work if you are doing things unpaid. All right, perfect. I hope that answers your question. Anonymous attendee. Right. Okay. So any more questions at all? Perfect. Oh, you're welcome, Deborah. Great. Okay, guys. Well, I'm going to leave it to that. So if you have any questions, you can drop me a message on those social media channels, or you can head to emilycfoster.com/contact. And for any questions on the Nutrium software, which I really encourage you to check out, you can head to www.nutrium.io. Thank you so much, guys, and have a fantastic weekend.